Welcome to another episode of Human Rights and Human Wrongs. Our guests today are Andra Opolinsky and Susan Dyes from FAU College of Nursing. Welcome. So I just want to give you guys a chance to introduce yourself before we get into the interview.
My name is Dr. Andra Opolinsky from the Christine E. Lane College of Nursing, and I have been at FAU for about 3 years now.
My name is Susan Dyas, and I also am faculty at the College of Nursing, and I've been on this particular project for about 2 years, and thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. What inspired you to initiate the Dignity in Feet project?
Why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay. Well, we began with a community-based participatory action research intent, and we worked with Holy Cross Hospital and the director of community outreach and the project director of their faith community nursing outreach. Part of that intent is to allow the agenda of the research to surface and emerge from those with whom you interact, and persons experiencing homelessness and their feet became the issue. And surprisingly, there are statistics that consider the number one issue facing homeless shelters, soup kitchens, are feet. Who knew?
Wow.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to be involved with some community partners. Hope South Florida is an organization in Broward County that works to provide services to the homeless of that people experiencing homelessness in that community. And one of the opportunities they have is weekly feeding programs at multiple different, usually at faith communities, and just in an informal questioning assessment of asking both those that were coming to participate and get food in those settings, as well as those who were volunteering, what the biggest health needs were that they were seeing. And to our surprise, it kept coming back feet. And every week there was someone that was having issues with feet. They didn't have shoes that were protective. And I knew of a project that had been going for about 25 years in Miami, where once a year they had a foot washing and foot care event that they would provide. And so in working with Holy Cross, a nurse there said, will FAU partner with us to do this for Broward County? And so that's really how it all got started. It was very organic.
Right.
Yeah, it was really a leap of just following the cues from the universe and what emerged from our community interactions.
Wow, that's so interesting. So what was the most meaningful part of this work for you and for some of the volunteers that you worked with?
You want to take that?
Oh, wow.
I guess we could both answer it.
Yeah, it meaningful on a number of levels, and I think that all of us that were involved took away from it multiple dimensions of meaning. Certainly the human dignity was something that was there and really surfaced, but also connecting to others, and part of Christine E. Lane College of Nursing philosophy is grounded in caring and caring science, and that was a beautiful theme that really came through all of our interactions with students, with other colleagues, with lay people, and those experiencing homelessness also.
Wow, it's very interesting. So how are you hoping to grow and expand this service for long term?
The faith community that we actually partner with, we have multiple community partners that are a part of this. It is FAU College of Nursing and the Peace, Justice, Human Rights Initiative. Also, we have Hope South Florida that I mentioned. Broward Sheriff's Department Homeless Outreach is also a partner with us, as well as the faith community Christ Church United Methodist and their Pompano campus, and they hold the weekly meeting. They would love to expand health services, so I think that there's opportunities to explore that. This is actually the second year that we have done. We just completed the second year of the foot care event, And so they would like to do it more than a year. It takes a lot of resources, more than once a year. It takes a lot of resources to pull that together. But right now we are on target to continue to provide those services. And we're able to bring students from the College of Nursing from the pre-licensure level all the way through RN to BSN. And this year we were able to add some master's level nurse practitioner students to provide a higher level of care for those that might have more complicated issues with their feet that we could address.
Sure. So you mentioned now you're just waiting on resources. So what resources, can you go more into that?
Well, resources is always something that allows you to expand what you offer. We were benefited by Bombas, which is a sock company whose mission has a philanthropic aspect, and they actually donated 250 pairs of high quality socks. We also benefited from the donations of several of our colleagues, of lay people, of new shoes and equipment that needed to be purchased, cleaning solutions that need to be purchased. Now, some of the equipment is reusable, but some is disposable, and there are funds that are needed to purchase and keep those replenished.
So what are some of the roles that students have played this year in this project?
We were really fortunate this year that we had about 50 students, nursing students and one anthropology student that were involved. We had students from pre-licensure, so those that are there getting their first 4-year degree, who we had a fabulous opportunity this year to have a shower truck. So Hope South Florida has just purchased a mobile shower truck that has 6 different stalls. Well, of course, with any of that, you have health concerns, and so there was a whole team that made sure that the cleaning protocols for that were done, and those were our pre-licensure students. We had 9 of those that were involved in that. We had 29 RN to BSN students that did all of the physical assessments of the feet, as well as a health history, and provided the hands-on care in that way. If there was a student, or if there was a homeless individual who had a more significant foot issue, then we had a higher level of care station that had a podiatrist, 2 nurse practitioners, as well as 4 nurse practitioner students, and they were better to able address those needs. We also were able to involve some master's degree research students this year, and we're testing a tool, the reliability of a tool that was really looking at human connection between community health care providers and those experiencing homelessness, and they were able to help us with that. So it was great to be able to involve so many students in an event, really caring for the needs of a vulnerable population.
We're going to take a short break for Human Rights and Human Wrongs, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Human Rights and Human Wrongs. Joining us now is Patricia Lear, along with Andra Opolinsky, also from the FAU College of Nursing. As we continue, I wanted to ask you ladies, how did you guys decide to incorporate a research component to your program?
You know, that really just started with a call for proposals from the Peace, Justice, Human Rights Initiative. I was new to FAU, and I saw that call for proposals come across the email, and so I started to look into it. And we knew we were doing the work with those experiencing homelessness, but it was intended to just be a clinical event to provide clinical care for a vulnerable population. And as I looked at the themes of the Peace, Justice, Human Rights Initiative, addressing needs of the homeless, social inclusion, inequalities, those type of things were a part of that. And so I thought, you know, there may be a place for this, but then really had to start thinking about, what do I really want to know? And Susan and I discussed, Dr. Diaz and I discussed, what do we really want to know and how do we capture that? And then it really was through some informal conversations with Dr. Lear that we decided on the approach of how we might address this.
Yeah. And so that's really something that we called Field to Forum. And I had been doing research with survivors of Pearl Harbor and Hiroshima for quite some time. And one of the things I knew from working with those survivors was that they wanted us to tell the stories to more than the audience who we usually get in a journal. So, so what we did for the Pearl Harbor Hiroshima work was we worked with a playwright, Kate Morris, from the College of Arts and Letters, and created a performance entitled With Their Voices Raised that showed two sides of surviving the bombings of World War II. And so when we wrote about that, we talked about that as moving from field to forum. So whether the field be practice or whether the field be research, wherever you have stories, wherever you know what matters to people, you can make them come alive through the arts in a way that gets people to come and to hear about it, other than reading Advances in Nursing Science, which is an excellent nursing journal, and we publish in there. But the visual arts allowed us to reach a lot more people and dialogue with them and promote understanding. So, yeah. And
I think the story, the whole idea of story and how do we tell another group's story in a real and authentic way was really what helped me resonate with Dr. Lear's work. And then really having to think about how do we tell that story. And
it's about giving voice. It's about giving voice, in this case, to people who are homeless, you know, and when you do that, you potentially create understanding, which is really what we were interested in doing. And so, and Andra and I have an office next to each other. So you see,
Neighbors.
yeah, that's very helpful because you're constantly engaging in, you know, ideas. And so she would come over and say, you know, I'm thinking of doing this. And I'd say, well, let's talk about it. And then, so it was in my mind, right? So now I'm I think this is the funny part. The funny part for me was that night when it was in my mind, thinking about how to support Andra and Susan doing the grant for Peace, Justice, and Human Rights, I went to Habit Burger for dinner. And there at Habit Burger, I saw Mike Harris, who is the chair of arts and of anthropology and arts and letters in the College of Arts and Letters. And and I said to Mike, you know, I'm working with a faculty member who's interested in somehow transmitting the message of homelessness through photographs. And do you know anyone? Well, he said, I know someone. In anthropology, she would be perfect. And so, you know, so I went back and said to Andra, we've got somebody who might work for this. So, you know, projects, I think that idea of how projects grow, you know, it takes a village to really make these things come alive and be meaningful. And yeah, and so you're seeing part of the village here today.
Well, and I think for me, the learning piece of that is this was not where I intended. It's not being part of Peace, Justice, Human Rights. It wasn't something that I anticipated, but it connected with the work that we were currently doing, and it's been a great partnership through our partnership together and with Peace, Justice, Human Rights.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And when we come back, we will be talking about visual anthropology and how students are engaged with this project. With us now is Nancy Stein from the Department of Anthropology to talk about the role of visual anthropology in this project. So Dr. Stein, how did you choose the photographs as your data source in the research?
It began with the first meeting, the initial meeting I had with Susan and Andra. Andra was bringing up a program that she had seen. What was the name of that program? The
Humans of New York.
The Humans of New York. And tell a little bit about what you picked up in that project.
Well, I had recently been introduced to the project Humans of New York, and there was a new book that was out that I had been given, and I really was just really taken by how the story can be told in a photograph of a person, and sometimes just with a photograph, sometimes maybe with a short caption, and how powerful that story could be, and just begin to think about might that be a possibility of how to really address this project and how to tell the story of those experiencing homelessness.
And for me, it was a perfect transition for the work that I do because I had also recently joined the Human Rights program here at FAU, and we were talking about how to apply to this in a collaborative way, and that was the idea behind joining our two departments. And photographs, as a visual anthropologist, this provides a visual methodology to use to collect data. And we both loved the idea of that Humans of New York as a way of telling the story. It seemed like a great idea to capture not just a vulnerable population like the homeless, but everyone that was involved in this project that we were doing. We were able to document the whole project and tell the stories of all the different populations, the nursing students, the people from the hospital who came, the people from the church who were volunteering, the people who were there who are homeless and were coming for the services that were being provided. Also the other groups that came along, this HOPE water truck that was there, the Broward Sheriff's Office, all the different groups were able to participate through the visual, and that provided the data as a research component. And it also carried on to after when Susan and Andra and I sat down and we looked at our, what was it,
587 photographs.
Photographs, yeah. We projected them onto a big screen, and the three of us sat there and we went through the data just like you would in any research project, only we had the visual data. And that's when it really hit us that it wasn't just about documenting what happens when people who are experiencing homelessness participate in an event like this. That's when it really hit us that it came out, you could see very clearly there was a lot about human compassion, about people working together, sharing stories. The images were very powerful, and we've brought a few so that you can see how some of this human compassion was translated into visual data.
Well, and I think, the two photos that we brought to share, I think one really gives a good indication of sort of some of the issues with foot health that can be a part of that. And the other is a really powerful visual of someone providing really human connection and spiritual care. It's a picture of someone praying with another individual, which got to the heart of the work that we were doing through Faith Community Nursing and how we might impact people in a holistic way through these type of events. Interestingly, that the way that we chose to display, from the beginning, the intent with the forum piece, so the field work was the visual photo images, and then we had to make a decision of how we bring that into the forum, how we bring it into discussion. We wanted it to be portable because each of the different venues wanted us to be able to bring it. They wanted to see what the pictures were. And so we had to figure out how to make it portable, and as we really kept thinking about that, came to the idea of cardboard. And when we put it on cardboard boxes, we realized as we looked more into that how important cardboard is with individuals who are experiencing homelessness. They use it for multiple different reasons to make signs. They use it for shelter. Wow. They use it for padding to sleep on. And so felt like that really was an authentic way to be able to tell their story as well.
We created whole displays. Andra got creative and built towers out of cardboard, and then we took the photographs, we had them printed and mounted them on pieces of cardboard, and then we had signs up like people who are experiencing homelessness on the streets might show. And we took this exhibit to a class that I teach on human rights, and we'd done a chapter in a book on images in human rights, and we wanted to use the class as sort of a guinea pig on aspects of human rights connected with people who are experiencing homelessness, and collaboration as a way of carrying out field research and documenting a project. So we put this exhibit up in the classroom, and we had the students walk around and look at the photographs. But at that point, we had narrowed it down to
50.
a mere 50. And Susan and Andra asked the students before they walked through to sit down and write on a piece of paper any ideas that they had in association with people who were experiencing homelessness, any personal knowledge that they had or experiences, or just what they thought of when they thought of people who are homeless. And they wrote down their ideas. The students wrote down their ideas. Then we went through the whole presentation about our process, our findings. We had them walk around, look at the photos. And then at the end, we asked them again, has anything changed for you? Is there anything that you see differently now within this this context of looking at people who are experiencing homelessness? And the students were very moved by it. A lot of them talked about the fact that instead of just seeing someone on the street corner and really not seeing them as human, but thinking about them as dirty or smelly or them over there having issues, they said it made them stop and think about the fact that these are people with any number of stories, issues, situations that brought them to this. It was a complete turnaround for them in what they thought about now and how they would see people who are experiencing homelessness. So on our final exam for that class, I asked the question. We'd had a number of speakers, and I gave them a choice as one of their final questions. Name one of the speakers that we had and talk about their what they spoke about and how it connected to human rights and any impact that it had on you. And over half of my students talked about that presentation and how it's changed the way they see fellow human beings in general now. And it made them think about how precarious everyone's situation is. So it ended up being very powerful for all of us.
You know, I think an important piece with all of that, it was a human rights class. And one of the things that we really had to consider from the very beginning is informed consent. Since it was research, it was data that we were producing, and that's a question that has come up often as we've talked about this project. How did you get consent to use this as data? And so we devised a process that was with name tags, and in the informed consent.
A visual process.
A visual process, yes, because we needed to be able, as the visual anthropologist taking the photographs, Nancy needed to be able to know at the point of care whether or not someone had consented to be able to have their photograph taken. And so they would consent to either having any identifiable information captured, which was facial recognition. And if they chose that on their name tag, they would get a green dot, so that she knew a green dot meant she could photograph anything. Some people weren't comfortable with that. They said you can take photographs of something that's not identifiable, for instance, the feet, the picture of the feet that wasn't identifiable, and they would have a yellow sticker on. Or if they said, I really don't want my photograph captured, then they would have a red sticker on. And so she was able to see at the point of care who she could photograph and how she could photograph them, as well as when we went through the data, we were able to double check that and make sure that we only had photographs of individuals who had consented to that process.
Yeah, anytime we saw a red dot, we just took that photo out. The other aspect of that was we all wore name tags, whether you were from the church or a student or a visitor, we all had name tags. Yeah, from the beginning we were trying to stress the ethical components of the project, because we thought about this idea of dignity and how will that translate in our project, and that was one component, and I think an important component.
So any final thoughts before we close?
I think we're just excited about the opportunity for this to be really a multidisciplinary approach. We've had so many community partners. We've named many of them, really multiple partners, even within FAU, Peace, Justice, Human Rights, Anthropology Department, nursing. It's been, and now, communications and LTV. And
that's right. And the Honors College, we had a nursing student from the Honors College.
We have an undergraduate nursing student who is going to be connected with this project for her honors project. And we're really excited about that, to be able to bring multi-levels of students to be able to support them through these endeavors.
And a student from the anthropology department who's joined on with helping document our projects.
So it's really been a great venture. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and talk about it.
Awesome. Well, their ongoing research continues to evolve and they're always looking for new forums. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us on this discussion for human rights and human wrongs.